I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Eddie Francis, thank you so much for coming on Mental Health News Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Chris.
Absolutely. So, our incredible colleague, Kimberly Williams, is who introduced me to you. She came on my show to talk about workplace harassment and, things of that nature. And today, you and I are going to talk about ethical leadership. But first, will you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am born and raised in New Orleans, and so I am red beans and rice and jambalaya and gumbo and all of that good stuff, all things New Orleans. I love my home city, and I am a marketing and communications consultant. I also have a background in broadcasting, so I've done radio for about 30 plus years,
Wow.
and I'm also a speaker. So that's what I do. I am someone who, I've had quite the career journey. It's not like it's been really, haywire or anything like that, but it is. I spent a lot of time just searching inward, trying to figure out why is it I do the things I do, why I'm so enamored with the things that I do, and why the work that I do means so much to me. And so that is who I am. I am one of those people who's always trying to stick to my purpose, and always trying to figure out what the purpose might be in whatever season of my life, I'm in at the time.
What do you think about when you go, if someone comes up to you from your past when you were a completely different person, you could only get things to the level that you got them at that point in time. And then, it's 10, 15 years later, you run into that person and and they see you as the last time they remembered you, right?
Yep.
So what
Yep.
do we all do our things in those moments, but what do you think about yourself when you really witness just how different you are 15 years later?
Depends on who I'm talking to. So it might be an apology up front.
I've done
So
many of
actually,
those.
so actually, you know what? Actually, I do have a really funny story about that. I met my wife at work, and so we were at an event, and I saw her across the room. Like, this is such a sappy, typical story. I saw her across the room, and I thought to myself, "Wow, who is that?" And so I went to introduce myself to her, and I said, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Eddie." And she kind of looked at me. She goes, "Eddie," and I said, "Yeah, yeah, Eddie Francis. I work here." And she goes, "Oh, so you're Eddie Francis?"
Ooh.
And I went, did we go to college together?
I'm sorry. A
So,
blanket apology right now. You don't need to say anything else.
so I kid you not, Chris. I could feel my face change when she said that. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, oh, did she meet me when I was in my really jerky stage in college? I mean, what happened? As it turns out, the reason she greeted me that way was the place. First of all, I didn't realize she was a coworker. And so the reason she knew about me was we had this boss who actually told her that I was going to do some stuff for her because I was in communications. And he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Eddie's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to get this together for you, get that together for you." And I didn't. And the reason I didn't is I didn't know that I had been given that directive. And so she thought I was supposed to be doing some stuff. I didn't know I was supposed to be doing some stuff. And that's why she greeted me that way. But that was one of those moments when I was thinking, oh man, is this somebody who met me when I was basically kind of somebody else, a long time ago? To
Exactly. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
about that kind of a lens when we're talking about ethical leadership
Hmm.
because, for example, I was just speaking to someone today and we're writing a book together, not necessarily about ethical leadership will be a part of that, but ours, we're going into spirituality and all those things. But I thought
Hmm.
about when I was talking to her, oh, okay, so there are people that show up as leaders
Hmm.
just because
Hmm.
that's what they do. They don't, sometimes you don't even know, yet you just do, right? But if you're not fully formed, as we are never,
Hmm.
there will be different styles and ways in which your leadership manifests, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you like watch someone like the thread of someone's life in that leadership position and how sometimes they pull back the leadership because they're working on maybe inner stuff or something and then they bring it back in. How do you watch that arc, but also the arc of the people around them, the people that have never been a leader, they don't want to be a leader, and they don't understand how much complexity is involved in actually being a leader?
Hmm.
So it's not just witnessing that person and their leadership arc, it's witnessing the people around them and how they react to them.
I think that is a fascinating question, and I'm trying to think of someone who I've watched who's really developed. I There is someone who I got a chance of meeting who's a university president. I met this president after he had developed into this leader that people really respect and they enjoy being around him. I enjoy being around him. But I was actually told by someone that when he took the job, he was not liked at all, not well liked.
Mm.
And so what happened is that he stepped into the role. And I mean, this is someone who came from another region of the country, didn't necessarily understand the lay of the land where he arrived. And, he just acted on what he knew based on where he was from, his region of the country. And the locals just didn't like it. They weren't with it at all. And so, there are these stories about how people started quitting the university and others were let go. And there were
Oh,
these people just couldn't stand him. And word got out that he was just this awful person. And I had a hard time imagining that. But then I thought about it. Well, if you are dropped into a situation and you have to get accustomed to whatever the local custom is of that area, and you're not necessarily ready to take it on, then there are going to be some missteps.
right.
And so I think that's what happened with this person. I think he walked in, there were missteps. And I think as someone who was taking over a university, and this is a major university we're talking about, he was somebody who walked in thinking, okay, I have got to walk in and it's got to work. I can't make mistakes.
Which is like the death knell. You have to make mistakes.
Exactly, exactly. So I think based on some of the stories I heard, he just walked in with his mind made up of what he was going to do because he didn't want to make mistakes. He didn't. And I think what happened along the way is that there was some people who were around him who realized that he had this arc that he was going to have to go through. It just wasn't going to work out the right way the first year, maybe not the second year. It wasn't going to work out the right way the third year. Like there's this arc. And to me, one of the things I've noticed in leadership, especially with the bigger the job is, the longer it takes for someone to really get into their groove with that particular office or that particular culture that they're dealing with, especially if they note that there needs to be a culture change. And so I think that what happened with him was that was one thing too with him. I think he noted there needed to be a bit of a culture change if the goals were going to be met. And what wound up happening, with one of the folks who told me this story, they said, I was one of the people who gave him a chance. And I was one of the people who realized that he walked into a situation where he really needed time to understand where he was, who he was dealing with. He had to realize that the culture was very different from where he came from. And, he wound up getting these people around him who, over the course of time, realized that, okay, we need folks who are going to take care of him because
Yes.
actually he's not a bad person. He's not trying to do bad things to people. He just needs time to understand where he is and what needs to happen in order to meet the goals that the institution is trying to meet, that the board is trying to meet. And so that was that to me this person was, he's kind of a fascinating study. And actually I think he is actually on his third contract with the university, so he's been there a while. And I've also seen presidents, they don't weather the first contract.
Right.
They make a bunch of people upset and they are run straight out of town. you know
Exactly.
yeah, so I really respect the fact that he stuck with it, and I respect the fact that there were people around him who, in the beginning, they probably weren't all that crazy about him, but they gave it time to work. And now these are some of the same people who protect him, and they say, okay, listen, if you're going to deal with him, this is what you need to know. This is what he tries to do. This is what he wants to accomplish. And so I think it's a fascinating arc, though, to watch a leader, really grow into whatever they're going to be, or to grow into something else, or to develop along the way.
Yeah, because there are people that, and there's no, he isn't better than people that don't want to be a leader.
Hmm.
There's no hierarchy there. It's just that no matter where he would go, if he went to go work at a Slurpee making shop, he would end up being the line lead. You know what I mean? Like it just, that's what happens because that's what you gravitate to. And other people are like, no, I don't want that. So, I always found it fascinating when I was doing software deployment at big mental health agencies. I could always tell the agencies that I really connected with because those rollouts would be very smooth because
Hmm.
leadership was very much about, listen, you all chose the software you want to use. We're going to write a huge check to make
Hmm.
this happen. It's going to change the infrastructure of our entire organization. What can I do as a leader to support you because I know that change is hard, even though you asked for this? Those are the
Hmm.
ones that, bam, 3 years later, they're still using the software. They're cranking with it. It's awesome. They picked a good one. And then I'd walk into another organization where nobody's asked their opinion. The leadership picked it. It's the same software that the other place is doing blazing with, but this new one, before it even gets rolled out, oh, this, I hate it. Just like people that go, I hate AI, I hate this, I hate electricity, I anything new because you've got to change. And so if those organizations, they would always return it, get something else, get a refund, and a year later they're doing the same, they're circling that same drain. But it was them, and it was also the leadership culture didn't
Yeah.
step in to support this big change. So I always found that fascinating. I could walk in and go, this one's going to be fine. The one
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock, I don't know about them.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to something that I believe very strongly. I know people have different ideas about leadership, and that's normal because we all have our lived experiences, especially when we're the ones who are under the leaders. We all have our lived experiences.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have noticed about leaders who I've watched or who I've read about who have progressed in a certain way is that they treat it like a process. They realize that leadership is a process. Things are going to change. People are going to change. The conditions are going to change. And if you can't figure out how to move with those conditions, and if you can't figure out how to really work with the changes that these people are going through in your own changes, then you're gonna have a big problem. I actually did this review of, just for kicks. I did this a couple of years ago, and I did it again recently, where I reviewed like 30 leadership articles, and I just wanted to get an idea of what the biggest leadership challenges were. 2 years ago, when I did this review, the number one challenge was adapting to change.
Yeah,
When I did it a few months ago, the number one challenge was adapting to change.
exactly.
I think that's going to be it. I one of the things I geek out about when it comes to leadership is because I actually got my master's degree in strategic leadership, and I just geeked out the entire time I was doing this program. And one of the things I geeked out about the most is that there's this leadership scholar by the name of Gail Avery out of Australia, and she noted that there are four paradigms of leadership throughout history. And the reason that these paradigms have changed is, quite frankly, people have not only have people changed a lot in society, but also because leadership got to a point where it could no longer just tell people what to do. People started demanding a bigger voice over time. And even in the structures of government and communities that we've had, you can only keep people in check for so long. At some
Right.
point, people are going to tell you enough is enough if they don't like what's happening. And so what's happened is that there have been these different parts of leadership studies that have really developed. One of the biggest ones lately, and one that I'm really into, is followership, where you really examine what the followers are doing and how the followers control the tone and how they control the temperature of the organization, how they control the temperature of the community. And so I think that, when you have, to your example, when you have this software that one leader rolls out and his leader treats their followers like the important people that they are,
Yes.
and they say, okay, folks, this is what's going to happen. They set the expectations. And on top of that, the leader does it in a respectful way, understanding that the followers are going to be impacted by this change somehow. And so they point that out. Things are going to change. We're going to go through this, we're going to go through that. But this is a huge investment. So I just need you to work with me. When leaders approach people that way, especially as somebody in a follower position, if you just talk to me and you tell me what's going on, I may not like it, but at least you told me. At least I have an indication of what direction we're headed in. But when you have the ones, and I know this as a marketing and communications person, especially working in higher ed, where people kind of treat they treat marketing and communications like the arts and crafts shop. So what happens is that the administration makes a marketing decision, and they go to marketing and communications and tell marketing and communications what the marketing and communications decision is. And you're sitting there going, you didn't ask me anything. And by the way, this is a bad idea. And I have the expertise to tell you why, but you don't want to hear it. Screw you. And so you sit there, and what do the followers do in that kind of situation? They either self-select, they decide they're going to go somewhere else and do something else, or they watch the leader fail miserably. And they're
Right.
like, you know what? I'm just going to watch the show. Here's my popcorn. Let me watch you work this out because you didn't ask me. I could have told you this was a mistake. You didn't want to hear what I had to say. This is a waste of money. Good luck. And so I think and the leaders who just kind of throw things at their people, they just throw orders at their people and they expect them to just go in lockstep with the orders. Those are the ones who don't see it as a process. They see it as a vanity project.
Oh, yeah.
They treat their position like a toy, and
Or
they
everyone is an extension of them. And
oh, well, oh goodness gracious,
so
yeah,
if
everyone.
somebody dares ruffle feathers or not stay within the construct of what's
Hmm.
been projected upon them. Oh my God, are they going to? That's when you get into workplace bullying right there.
Exactly. That's when you get into it. So just so you know, and I was actually listening to one of your episodes about narcissism, and
Oh
I,
God.
and so I actually did my master's thesis on narcissism and leadership and how it impacts,
Really?
yeah, and how it impacts followers.
Oh wow.
And it can be, it's really interesting because the you have this spectrum of narcissism, and there's this model that I like, the narcissism spectrum model, that really lays it out, and it just talks about how everything is centered on self-importance.
Yes.
And so, to your point, when you have these leaders who are thinking, "Oh, you're just an extension of me," they might not necessarily
Yeah,
be a
they may not
narcissistic
know
leader.
that consciously, but
Yeah,
yeah.
they may not necessarily know that. They may not necessarily be a narcissist, but they're surely jerks, And so when when you have these people saying, "Oh, you're an extension of me," well, why would you want to help this person? And this is what happens from the follower side. This is what happens when you have someone who might be what you call an alienated follower. This is someone who they are thinking they want to be involved, but they've checked out. And they're saying, you know what? Forget about it. Do what you got to do. I have some great ideas, but go ahead, do your worst. Do a bang up job. And they're not helpful to the leader. And so this is why I developed this idea that we really, really need to think very seriously, especially for the next generation, about what true ethical leadership looks like.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that, I think the president who I talked about, I think he's an ethical leader because he did, in fact, I understand that he probably got some coaching at one point, but for him to have opened himself up to coaching as a
Great.
university president says a lot about his character.
Well, you know what it's like? It's like, if you're going to lead other people, you better have your shit together. You know what I mean?
Oh
If you
yeah,
want to do it
yes.
well, you better get your ass in therapy. You better freaking
Hmm.
do some deep dives into your personality, examine those things, be discerning about your own behavior. I mean, my God, if you want to be a good ethical leader, you better dive and dive in on yourself.
So Chris, I had this when I was a director of communications and marketing at one university. I had a team of five, and I had never had a team before. So I had to figure a few things out.
Yeah.
But here's what I knew. I knew I wanted to treat them right. That's all I knew. I just wanted them to have a fulfilling work experience, and I wanted them to be able to rest when they were at home. I wanted them to have restful holidays and that sort of thing. And of the five I had on the team, four were millennials. There was one baby boomer, and then me, the Gen Xer. And so one of the millennials was someone who I saw her and I'm like, okay, she has so much promise. Okay, I really, really want to position her to do a great job. And so one day I sat her down. I asked her. I said, "Hey, what do you want to do for the rest of your career? Because I know you don't want to be here for the rest of your career." And she said, "Maybe." And I said, "Okay, well, maybe you do. Well, if you want to be here, what do you want to do?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I'm not really sure." So we talked about it. And one of the things that I try to do, because I've been a job recruiter before, I've done talent acquisition, so I know how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these people who are all under 40, and I'm going, listen, this is not the end of the road for you.
Oh, yeah.
This is very much the beginning. And so you have a long way to go. If you want to be here, great. Let's talk about what that looks like. But if you don't want to be here long term, or if you don't, even if you're thinking about leaving in a year or a few months, let's talk about that too.
Yeah.
I had to abandon I had to abandon what I wanted, and I had to understand what they wanted, because if I operated according what I wanted, there was a good chance that I wasn't going to get it anyway. And so I actually sat one of them down. Well, the one who I was crazy about her, and I'm going, okay, she's going to be so great at whatever she does. So I got really excited because before I hired her, I was taking a look at the university social media and I was like, okay, great. There's some great things we can do with social media. And there was a lull between the last social media person and her. And so in that lull, I did the social media. So I started seeing some results based on what I was doing. She comes in and when we're doing our one-on-ones, Chris, I'm pulling into the office and I'm going, okay, let me show you what I did on Instagram. And, and I'm going, there's this great thing. Do this, do this, do this. And so I'm just going down this list of things that I think she should do because I have all these awesome ideas. And then, and then she's like, oh, okay. And so I noticed one meeting that her body language was a little bit closed. And I'm going, okay, okay, cool, cool, cool. No, 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 no. Let me show you. Let me show you what a cool thing is. And da da da. So we get to like the third one-on-one, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm really annoying her because I'm doing her job. I'm not letting her do her job. And so right in the middle of the meeting, when I was about to go and give her another list of things that I thought was so cool, I stopped myself and I went, what do you think? What do you want to do? And she just gave me this look like, oh, get it. Now do I get a chance to talk? And I said, okay. I said, I'm so sorry. What do you want to do? And she said, well, here's what I think. And the more she talked and the more I let her talk, the more excited she got. And I said, okay. And after she was done, I said, you know what? Everything you just said, go do it. Just go do it. And we'll talk next week and we'll talk about whatever it is you do. Well, I'm sure you know how this ends. She did a way better job with social media than I could have ever thought of doing because I hired her to be the expert.
That's
And
right.
so and it was really I had to laugh at myself because as a matter of fact, after that one-on-one, I was on my way home and I just started kind of chuckling at myself because I'm like, okay, thank God you know, thank God you realize that you have to abandon your freaking ego and just let her be the expert. She is the expert, you know. Otherwise, you're wasting money on this person, And so that was a huge leadership lesson for me, and I was really thankful that I was able to catch myself. And I'm really, and she was a coordinator at the time. I actually saw her not too long ago, and she's actually an assistant marketing director somewhere now. So I was very, very proud to see that. But yeah, it was kind of hard for me to abandon my ego. I had to really put myself in
Yeah,
check.
it's kind of like, for leadership positions, it seems, I mean, of course, there's every type of person along the spectrum of leadership, but to me, the ones that their companies are still around, and I was their consultant 20 years ago, and their companies are still chugging along, or they're chugging along in another really great company because they sold the last one.
Hmm.
They were always the ones that had a lot of humility.
Hmm.
They may have believed completely different things than me about religion or politics or whatever, but they really had this incredible sense of humility
Yeah.
and empathy. And they were not capable of looking at a situation and putting themselves in the middle and how everybody works around them. They literally put themselves in with everybody else, all working together. And those are the ones that I go back and I visit and we have lunch, if I'm in where they're located again or whatever, and I go, man, you're still doing it. Like you're still in there and you've just gotten deeper and richer and financially too, but just more. And when how much they give away at that point. Oh, what do I need all that for? I just put it back into the company or we created a nonprofit that handles this. I don't need all that. Those are the ones that make it over the long haul. You know what I
Hmm. It is said that self-awareness is the first commandment of leadership.
mean?
And I think the ones who make it a point to really, really do some introspection, I mean, first of all, they find ways to take care of themselves.
Yes.
And I mean take care of themselves in a healthy way. They truly, truly engage in mindfulness practices. They give themselves a chance to rest. They give their brains a chance to rest. They also respect other people's rest. And they also are the ones, these leaders who I think tend to last a long time, and they tend to be productive because there are a lot of leaders who last a long time and they screw up the entire time. So they just bounce from one screw up to the next screw up to the next screw up. And, I think the ones who are healthy and they have this healthy progression, I think that they're the ones who they give people a chance to be themselves too, because they really respect identity and value.
Mm.
They want to maintain the dignity of their people, or they want to help their people maintain their dignity in whichever way they can, to whatever extent they can. And yeah, you do have the ones who are jerks and they're around a long time and they make a lot of money and they do all that stuff. But the question that you have to ask, I'll never forget, when I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was distraught because I was just in this place at the time where I was getting really depressed about my career progression. I didn't think I was going anywhere. And I was looking at people who I knew were doing pretty well in their careers, and they were making some really good money and that sort of thing. And she said, but you don't know what they did. You don't know what they sacrificed to make all of that money. You might not like some of the stuff they did to make that money, even though they seem really cool to you. Even though you have respect for them, you might find out something you want to find out about them.
Hmm.
And that was the case in a few cases.
Yeah.
And so that I think while you have some of these leaders they have very successful companies, or they're very successful in politics, or they're very successful in nonprofit or whatever. The thing you have to ask yourself is, what did they sacrifice to get there, and would you like it? And do they leave a trail of followers who are not happy, who
Right.
who who suffered to make them all of this money, or who suffered to get them to the top? And in a lot of cases, the answer, unfortunately, is yes. You have a lot of people in follower positions whose talents were ignored. The follower power that they have was ignored, but it was used, it was leveraged. And
Right.
so that I think I think that's one of the things that I think about. And I actually posted this question one day on Threads. I posted the question: would you consider someone a great leader if they have a very successful company but miserable people working for them?
Right.
And everybody was just like, they can't possibly be successful. Even if they make a lot of money, they're not successful. And, I thought those are some really interesting response. Most of the people who responded basically said, yeah, they probably are just burning through people. They probably have such high turnover at their companies. And I found it very interesting that not one person out of, oh, maybe I probably got about 20 some odd people to answer it. But I thought even out of just 20, someone would say, well, yeah, the company's doing great, so what's the problem? But no
Right.
one said that. No one said that. And I think that we live in a society right now that is begging for ethical leadership.
Yeah.
They want people, no matter what sector of society it is. It could be government, it could be the private sector, it could be the nonprofit sector, it could be education. I think right now people are dying for someone to say, I want everyone to be okay. I want to be okay. I want to be a success, but I want you to be a success with me. How are we all going to do this together? I think people are dying for that right now.
I agree with you. And I think that call that we have going on that's so captivating right now, it's at the pinnacle of loudness, so to speak,
Hmm.
in terms of wanting this. I think that's in direct correlation to how much of a lack there is of that. So we, the people, are saying, no more. We want
Hmm.
this. This, we know what this all looks like. This is awful. This is not ethical leadership. We don't like what we're seeing. We don't, like, we have such great examples of how not to be
Hmm.
that we now can actually start forming what it actually should be. Because I think in other years past, and I'm not going way back, I mean, just in my lifetime, we haven't. totally formed enough of what we don't want to know what exactly we do want. So we sort of get a mixed bag here and a mixed bag, and this pocket does well over here in that pocket. And what I'm seeing right now, and I could be wrong, don't butcher me if I am, but I'm seeing people galvanized by the loudness of how
Hmm.
bad it is out there in terms of examples, and it's making people crystal clear
Hmm.
about what they do want.
It is, and I think the case study in this is what happened in higher education, for example, in the wake of the COVID lockdown.
Right.
Right after folks started going back on campuses to work, or they started going hybrid, something started happening in higher education that higher education was not crazy about. And that is the number of people applying for jobs dropped dramatically.
Mm.
And higher education did not see that coming. Higher education, I love higher education, but the problem I have with higher education is that higher education as an industry is extraordinarily arrogant.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah. I grew up
the
with that. Yes.
and and so what happened was, and I'll use myself as an example. When I posted a job pre-COVID, it was a coordinator job in my office. I think I got about 50 plus applications, maybe 70 applications. So I had to really go through those applications and really whittle them down. After COVID, I posted a similar coordinator position and I had about 20 applications. And all across the country, colleges and universities were seeing these drop offs. So
Wow.
there is this organization, Coupa HR, College University Professional Association of Human Resources. Every year they do this employee retention survey. One year they found that, and I don't remember the exact percentage, but there was a large percentage, more than half of the people who took the survey wanted to leave higher education altogether. And so the problem was this: higher education did not realize that it could no longer hold people captive, if they wanted to work at a college or university, because what the COVID lockdown did for people is it gave them all this clarity. And people started to think, so wait a minute.
I don't have to work that way.
It's like, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me I can start this business on the internet
Right.
and I can make $50,000 a year doing this business, or I could go traipse across town, or I could go into this remote location where I have to drive 40 miles one way and I have to almost spend money to go work on this campus, and I'm going to make $40,000 and they're going to treat me like crap and they're going to tell me I'm lucky to have a job. Nah, give me the internet thing.
Yeah.
Let me let me start the
I'll
business.
make chicken coops in my backyard. That's
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, you know what? I can make a vase, so 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 all these people started figuring this out. Well, what happened is I would talk to folks in administrations and these folks would say, I don't understand. Why aren't people applying for higher ed jobs anymore? I said, because people are tired of being treated like crap.
yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, no, no, we don't do that. Yeah, you do. You do. You
Oh,
kind of do. Because you have someone on your campus, the new president comes in. The new president just wants to do an off with their heads thing, right? So they want to behead the entire regime that came before them,
wow.
all because it's a Tuesday. And not because they actually went around campus and actually talked to people and got some feedback about how they could keep good things going on. No, no, no. They want to bring their person from the last campus to do the student affairs job. They want to bring in their person to do the communications job, their person to be the finance person, without even knowing whether or not they had some real talent. And on top of that, when someone says, well, I think I'm going to go work somewhere else, or I think I'm going to go do another job, they have the unmitigated gall to say something like, well, that's fine. You're easily replaceable. Well, COVID proved that to be wrong. People are not easily replaceable, And so, and I did have, since I've been a recruiter, I did talk to one person who said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I have about 30 resumes for this position." And I said, "Yeah, but do you like them?" And he said, "Well," I said, "Are they really quality candidates? Are they the best candidates you could have gotten?" Well, and I'm sitting there going, I'm betting the answer is no. I
Yeah.
bet these are people who just need a job. These are warm bodies you're about to interview. And so I think higher ed found out as a case study, I think higher ed found out that people have options and people will opt for psychological safety any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Oh, that's a good, that needs to be on a meme. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
I mean they just will because that was my case. The last university that I left, I was being bullied.
Yeah.
I was being bullied for months. And so when I was let go, Chris, the only thing that I cared about the day I got let go was whether or not I would be able to beat rush hour home. That was it. That's all I cared about. I was like, give me the paperwork because rush hour was about to start and you're holding me up. And they couldn't believe it. They were like, "Oh, are you sure?" I said, "Oh, I am damn sure."
Yeah.
It's like I'm going home to my wife and I'm gonna sit down and we're gonna. I got home and my wife popped a bottle of champagne. I mean, she was just like, "Good, this is over. This part of your life is done." And I sat there and I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I don't want to do this again. I don't want to be bullied again. I don't want somebody to treat me like they can do with or without me. I want to be valued because I hold a lot of value. My time is precious. My talents are precious. And so if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to bet on myself. Let me start this business, you know. And if I'm going to sell anything, I'm going to sell myself. I know how to sell myself. And so I think to your point, though, to your point that people are really, really looking for ethical leadership. I think that is a good case study in how people said, I don't think I'm treated in an ethical way in higher education, so I'm going to do something else. And COVID-19, the lockdown showed me the way. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so I think a lot of people just really, really figured their lives out.
Well, it's what happens when it's why people tell people the most dangerous time in a domestic violence situation is, when you have told the police that time after.
Mm-hmm.
So, because what happens in that situation is, okay, this is why you want someone to be given a restraining order so that the
Yeah,
victim
yeah.
has room to breathe and figure out, oh, without all this of this person or
Mm-hmm.
entity telling me who I am, how I'm supposed to behave, what I'm supposed to tolerate, how my talent is supposed to be used to the point where I don't even know if I have a pulse because it's all been handled for me. I apparently am not allowed to be part of anything to do with what I'm supposed to create for you. And then suddenly they get room called COVID where they got to stay home
Mm-hmm.
and they can stretch within themselves and go, wow, it is nice being free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
People got quiet enough in their
Mm-hmm.
lives to have enough room to notice that they may deserve some change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I seriously, you've had some of the CEOs who have spoken out against working from home and remote work. I seriously question their ethics because it's not so much that I disagree with them. It's not that. It's the way they attack it. It's the way that people have made this assumption that if you're working from home, you can't be working hard. I
Right.
mean, a lot of people work way harder at home.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a lot of us
Partly.
do
Yeah.
because we're so tempted to stay up until 1 in the morning
Exactly.
and just keep on going and keep on going and keep on going. And you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, I still have this thing to do, and the bedroom is only a few feet away, so I can keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so that is such a fallacy. But I question the ethics of these CEOs who have lashed out at remote work as if it is a problem.
Right.
I think that quite frankly, if you are a leader worth your salt, you'll figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
And whether you have people in the office with you or not. I mean, I say this all the time, in my snarky way. It's like I don't have to look in your face to be productive. I really don't. I mean, I can I can be very productive sitting in my home office with my music on, with the dog sitting next to me. And if I answer your email within 5 minutes and you need me to do something and you need me to do it in an hour and I get it done in 30 minutes, then I've done my job. I
Okay.
don't need FaceTime with you. Okay. So and I realize, as of course we all know that that applies to certain types of jobs, but I mean, I just really question the ethics of the CEOs who have lashed out at remote work as if it is highly problematic. I just really question that.
We're not here to sugarcoat it. All Abilities No Filter dives into the raw, real life experiences of families, educators, and advocates in the world of autism and disabilities. It's honest, powerful, and full of practical insight. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or just someone who cares, we've got something for you. Listen to All Abilities No Filter everywhere you find your podcasts. All Abilities No Filter is brought to you by Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health.
You got to know there's something going on that isn't right.
Yeah.
If there's a whole bunch of people feeling like they don't thrive at work, they just survive.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, that so now we have studies that tell us that when people feel as if they're thriving, when they feel valued, when they feel fulfilled, they are more productive. And there are studies that are telling us that when people feel, for those who can do remote work, when they are feeling fulfilled at home, when they are feeling valued, when they're feeling valued by the company, they are productive. They are highly productive. And so we have data that tell us this. This isn't some mystery or anything like that. But at the end of the day, and this was one of the things that I found out as a recruiter. I would talk to all of these people about these jobs, and of course, money would come up, and of course, you had people who said, "Well, it's not necessarily going to pay what I want it to pay, so I'm going to have to pass on it." You can expect that, but in so many cases, candidates would ask me questions like, okay, is this an experience that I think, do you think there's an experience that's going to fit me? You've spoken to me for a few minutes, do you think I'm going to really like it there? The people in management, are they good people? So at the end of the day, what people were really asking was, even if I get paid a little less money or a lot less money than I want to make, am I going to like the job? Am I going to like it? Are the people going to be nice? Are they going to treat me like I have value? And if they're going to treat me like I have value, you know what? I will go ahead and take this job that pays less than I want, and I will accept the rest the rest of the pay that I want. I will accept it in peace of mind
Yeah.
or enjoyment. I want to enjoy this job, and that sort of thing. So, there's something out there that tells people that. But at the end of the day, yes, people want to get paid what they're worth or more. But even more than that, they want to be treated well. They want to be treated with respect. They want their talents to be used in a fruitful way. They want their expertise to be used. They want their expertise to be respected. And so that's what a lot of people are looking for at work. And ethical leaders know that. Ethical leaders know. I mean, as a matter of fact, that was my speech to my team. It's like, hey, I can't pay you what I want to pay you. It's just not in the budget. As a matter of fact, I hate to tell you this. This is higher education. Do not expect a raise anytime soon.
Right.
However, what I can do is I can try to make this as fulfilling an experience as I can for you. When you tell me, Eddie, I'm ready to move on to another job, if we've had a good relationship here and you've been productive here, I will write you a letter of recommendation, or I will be a reference for you. I'm going to do that. As a matter of fact, I will even coach you up into the next job if you feel it's time for you to move on. But even more than that, I try to do the little things. Everybody's birthday, I bought them a cake. When the holidays came around, Everybody got a holiday bag, which included a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne or something like that, because I felt it was very important to show them that I really cared that they were there and I loved that they were there. And then the other thing I did on a consistent basis is I thanked them. I was always thanking them for stuff. I was,
Thank you is such an underutilized
it
word.
is, it is. I mean, I was always thanking them, even when I was upset. I would say, thank you for trying. Thank you for giving
Yeah.
it an effort. It didn't work out. Let's talk about how to make it work out next time. There was actually one employee I had, and she was concerned that I was going to fire her. And I said, I'm not going to fire you. I said, what we're going to do is get this better. We're going to figure this out together, you and I. Okay, this isn't going to be me sitting in my office, talking a bunch of crap about you, and then I come out of the office and say, okay, you got to go. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is you and I are going to sit down and we're going to figure this out so that you can be better at this and I can be a better leader. Because
Right.
I also took that on. I figured as an ethical leader, it was my job to ask them if I was doing a good job.
Yes.
They were really surprised when we were doing our performance reviews. I knocked everybody on the team. I knocked them all on off their feet because the last question of the review was, "What can I do to be a better teammate for you?"
Oh,
And they were just like, "Really? You really want to know?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm preparing myself, but yes."
right. Exactly.
There was a fascinating, and I have to find this story, but there was a fascinating news story about a football coach at a high school. And this high school is one of the most winning high schools in the States, in whatever state it was. I can't remember what state it was in. But the football coach was always telling the players how much he appreciated them and enjoyed being around them and how much he loved them. And they went to one of the practices and he would say, you ran that play wrong. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. He said, now I love you. You need to go back and get back in there and run it right. But he wasn't a punitive coach. He didn't make the player, he didn't yell at him. He didn't cuss him out. Yeah, he didn't shame them. Everything
He
was
didn't
bookended
shame
by
them for
love.
making a
It
mistake.
was like, hey, I love you, but you did this wrong and blah, blah, blah. All right, I love you. Get back in there. I love you. And so
Mhm.
I thought that was really fascinating. And I kept chuckling to myself when I watched the story because I think it was a Catholic school, if I'm not mistaken. And I went to an all boys Catholic school. And that was definitely not how the coaches talked to the players. And I was sitting there going, would he have survived at my school?
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, man, but then I started thinking it would be fascinating. It's like, I really want to go back to my high school and ask them to try this. I know they're going to laugh me out of the place. I'm like, I really, really want to see if this could work, and I think, it's funny. I actually did an Instagram live the other night about mental health and manhood. And it was one of the things that I talked about was the fact that, at
Ooh.
the end of the day, I think the men who who are just kind of laughable are the ones who always have to make everything a show. Everything just becomes the big show. I'm the alpha male. I'm really tough. Because you know why I'm tough? Because I told you I'm tough. And the ones who feel the need to
Yeah.
really be the ones who get their self-worth from demeaning others, and that sort of thing. And I talked about that and I was like, that is really, this whole alpha male,
Yeah.
the alpha male thing, this bro culture thing that all these cats have going on right now. To me, that is desperation for adulation. It's immaturity. But it, but it's also, it's also flat out
It's
childishness.
narcissism 101.
And,
You're
and
just getting,
so
maybe I haven't.
it's the schoolyard bully running around the yard looking for the
Yes.
smallest
Yes.
kid to
Well,
punch,
fine.
all the
Yes.
time. And that's what that is. And so I really thought that, and so, going back to really my personal mission being to promote ethical leadership in everything that I do, when you get people who form that kind of culture, they're not concerned about ethics. They're certainly not concerned about anyone else. They're concerned about themselves. And they are letting their insecurity take center stage.
Yeah.
And I I just is I just thought it would be really, really interesting, though, going back to that coach with the team who, he always told him how much he loved him. And, I was just really thinking, man, it would be fascinating to see, especially to see that on a larger level. What happens if you have this leader who, especially a political leader,
Yeah.
someone to an elected office, who really frames everything in love, every single thing in love, everything. I just think that would be fascinating to watch, and I know there are people who would just hate it. As my wife says, they will certainly aggravate people's demons. you know.
Oh, and when you provide a nice, clean mirror to people and what they don't like what they see in it because of your bad behavior or because of your really, really good behavior.
hmm Yeah, yeah. It would provide a mirror, and I think that's what a lot of people. I think when people are unethical in their leadership, I think a big reason because they absolutely refuse to look in the mirror. They just won't do it. They will
Yeah.
not do it.
And here we are. Here we are in what used to not be able to be talked about,
hmm
mental health. And then we had this whole thing where we talk about mental health, and then we got big people with big positions talking about mental health, and now it's like it's cool. It's not even cool. It's now baked into the culture. This is part of our culture. Something
hmm
10 years ago that was not part of mainstream culture is now baked in.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
it
phenomenal.
absolutely is, and I love it because I mean, for one, and this is one of the things that I talked about the other night on the Instagram live is I just made 55 years old. I grew up in a time when you did not, as a man, you just did not talk about any kind of vulnerability. You
Right.
didn't cry. You kept everything inside as long as you possibly could. And if one day you erupted on someone, you actually got cheered on in some
Yep.
cases. If you erupted on someone and you physically hurt somebody, and that was a celebration because and that's when you were told, okay, now you're a man because you knocked that person out. But it's like, well, no, it's not that I'm a man. I'm just angry.
I'm angry
you
and
know.
being constricted and compressed from who you
hmm
really are and who you really want to be for so long that it comes out in a violent explosion.
Yes, yes. And that used and you know what? I used to be like that. I used to hold everything in. I'll never forget. I was doing stand-up comedy once upon a time. I did it locally. And I remember I went to go do a show at this little hole in the wall. And I was asked to MC the show. And I remember they said, okay, well, Eddie, we want you to do a few minutes of stand up. And I said, I don't know if I should do it in that place because, they're waiting for a show to start. They want music. They don't want comedy. No, 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 no. You should do it. So I walked in and I remember I started emceeing the show and I literally started setting up for a joke and somebody started booing. And what happened is that I had been really frustrated for weeks because things weren't working out the way I wanted them to. My sets weren't they were getting a little worse. And so I just had this rage built inside of me because I didn't know what to do with it. I was drinking it. I was drinking the rage,
Yep.
right? And so I went to the bar after the set. I kind of threw the microphone. I didn't throw the microphone down, but I just kind of put it down and I went and I had a drink because I was so upset. And I went backstage and there was and the artist who was performing that night came in and I I was backstage and I was pacing. I was like a caged animal. I was so angry. I was just pacing back and forth. And there was this DJ, and the DJ cut on top of somebody booing. The DJ cut me off when I was in because I was going to try to finish the joke. And the DJ cut me off, and I was so angry with the DJ. And I'll never forget. I got backstage. The DJ came backstage, and I glared at him across the room. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said the joke wasn't working. And I picked up a chair and I threw it at
Oh,
him.
wow. Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and the artist who was performing opened the door right as the chair was hitting the wall where the door
Oh,
was.
geez.
And I was just like, oh, this really could have been bad if it had made contact with somebody.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
And I think that was probably the most rage I had felt. I felt aggressive. And anybody who knows me, I don't get like that. That's just not one of my things. I don't like physical confrontation. I hate it. And so, I couldn't stand it. And one of the things that I talked about in the Instagram live that I did the other night is the reason I was even doing that IG live in the first place was I've been on this mental health journey. I've been for a solid 2 years. I've been going through a treatment plan, and it has really helped me focus on two things: behaviors and decision making. And it's helped me really examine those two specific things, and finding out, just a couple of years ago when I was 53, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So then, I've been really, really taking note of emotional regulation and how to practice mindfulness and all of these things. And I just said, listen, I don't hear people talking about mental health in this way enough, and I just want to share it.
Exactly.
And I want to share the journey that I've been on. It could work for you. Maybe it can, maybe it doesn't. But if it helps one person, I'm satisfied. I just want people to hear this. And I feel way better about myself. My wife jokes with me. She calls me evolved Eddie.
Isn't it interesting it's interesting how when you just water yourself, even just a teeny, eeny, weeny, little
Yeah.
teeny bit, the flowers that bloom just from even a drop of water into yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the way I feel. There are, as a business owner right now, there are pressures that I'm able to manage that I know I wouldn't have been able to manage even 5 years
Yeah.
ago. I know I wouldn't have been able to manage it. I would be in a fetal position crying somewhere. I just know
I
it.
have
But now it's like, okay, that happened. This is coming. This is going to be a problem. All right. Take a deep breath. It's going to be
Yeah.
okay. And that is the part that is very, very different about me, from even a few years back, just being able to say, it's going to be okay. Just take a deep breath and handle it, you know. And that is a huge, and that really is a huge evolution for
I
me.
would say evolved Eddie Francis. Where can people find you?
Very easy. Just look me up, eddiefrancis.com. Go to my website. You can find out about what I do in marketing and communications. You can find out about my adventures in broadcasting. And then also you can find out what I do as a speaker. But eddiefrancis.com is where you can find me.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Eddie, don't let go yet because we always have our little chats after. But listeners, we're going to take off now and we'll catch you on the next show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sonanta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low.